alcoholic and an addict.
And you are listening to Tenacious Recovery, the podcast. You got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. Don't forget to check out our new website, tenaciousrecovery.com, and subscribe with your email at the bottom, because we'd love to send you our latest episode. Also, don't forget to reach out through our website or through the episode itself. We'd love to know what your feedback is. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to us on all the socials. We are out there on every single social. Tenacious Recovery or Tenacious Recovery Podcast. Take it away, Sammy.
It's with great pleasure that I introduce our guest today, Mr. Tom Connell. Tom Connell, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show,
I know
guys.
you're a super busy guy. You have a lot of different things going on. I actually first met Tom Connell
Come on.
10 years ago, give or take.
At least
10 years ago.
Maybe more. I'm thinking more.
And he told me exactly what was going to happen in my life when I met him. He told me exactly how my life was going to work out professionally. I've consulted with him several times on how my life was going to work out personally. And I've always known him to just be like a rock solid Bill Wilson guy. And he's kind of always been there for me at times where I've needed him and pointed me in different directions, whether he knows it or not. And I'm like eternally grateful, and it means a lot to have him on this episode today.
That's a good program guy for you. Always there for the next person.
I know like a little bit about his story because I've heard tidbits of it over the years, but it would be really nice to just hear it all at once. So, Tom, how's it going?
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Vinny. Love the name, Tenacious Recovery.
You
It's
gotta
awesome.
love it, baby.
Thanks, man.
Been a secret fan for 39, 38 episodes.
No,
Are you?
appreciate it.
Yeah,
you are number
secret fan.
39.
Yeah.
I'm honored I finally got asked.
I
But
know.
it took
Well,
you
you're
guys
so
long
busy.
enough.
Typical.
Every time I talk to him, like, where are you? He's like, I'm going to play golf in Kiowa tomorrow. And I'm like,
Sweet.
all right. Every time he's doing something.
You earned
know.
that, though. You earned
Yeah.
that. You work hard in this industry, man.
I did. I'm kind of like, April will be my 40th year
You're getting
in
the-
behavioral health.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many
about
years do you
that?
have sober?
December 18th, 44 years.
44
Celebrated 44 years. in recovery.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks.
It's
Got
good to
sober
meet.
at 21.
It's good to meet somebody that has more sober time than you, because there aren't many.
That's rare.
I got 39 and a half years or whatever, and to meet somebody with 44, well, I've known you for a long time, but it's refreshing to see someone else with a good amount of time. And I got clean just before I turned 21. So
Nice.
yeah,
You might be our first guest with more time than Vinny. You might be number one.
yeah.
I don't think we've had anyone
Well, we
with
had
even half.
Steve, but we had to redo his episode.
Oh,
so,
yeah, Steve. Yeah.
Steve G.
We're just going to have to get old Al out here to beat both of you
Oh, my
soon.
God.
Yeah. That's
We
what's
may
going
have to censor
happen.
that episode.
Oh, yeah. That'll be like a private episode. Yeah.
Well, I had breakfast last Saturday, and I was the youngster. Had a guy with 50 years sobriety
Wow.
and 54 years sobriety.
Oh, wow.
In
Oh, my
Bucks
God.
County, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, tell us about
really cool.
Tell the crowd about your. We're going to be listened to all over, so your story is going to have an effect on people all over. So let us hear about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, we'll start at the beginning. The challenge with me telling my story is just at my age, I'll be 65 in March, just remembering my story.
I got you.
It seems like eons ago, like a bad dream. But I grew up Irish Catholic family. I'm the oldest of seven. I can't remember the first time I picked a drink up, but I'm thinking. So I was exposed to alcohol. It's always kind of been in the family tree. My grandfather was a violent alcoholic. My uncle was living in an abandoned car in Vegas for 2 years, and he was in and out of 12-step fellowships. And my dad's always kind of been like a binger, got in trouble with alcohol, but maybe was the generation that started to pull their act together. So I think being the oldest, I always felt pressure, very insecure. It's like, my dad worked a lot. It was like, who do I look up to? I didn't have an older brother or an older sister that I felt comfortable, taking my stuff to, right? And so I guess, we hear a lot in our field, the teenage years or pre-teenage or prime time for somebody experimenting. And I remember my first drink, though. I'll say 13, but I remember what age technically. I snuck into my dad's liquor cabinet, and there was a bottle of whiskey there. And I just remember hearing about it and seeing,
That's an adult
people
drink, and you want to try it.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't think I was having a particularly bad day and I opened that thing and I took a big gulp and it burned going down.
Oh, yeah.
Like fire, water, right? But then I remember just feeling incredible. And then I took another gulp and I felt like for me, I guess that story is important because I fell in love with alcohol. Like it was just like something had been missing and this thing just felt terrific. So then that's what began my pursuit of feeling terrific, in the teenage years,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it kind of, if I look at my high school years, like I would say, I started experimenting with alcohol first and then marijuana. And then as I kind of progressed through high school, the harder drugs, like back in those days, it was pills, like
Black
Tuinol,
Beauties.
Seconol, speed, like Black Beauty,
Right,
Quaaludes
right.
were like the things.
Yep. I remember them
Crank.
well. Crank,
Snorted crank. So, but I don't know. High school, the first couple of years, maybe like a weekend warrior. I was very involved in athletics. I did soccer, I did basketball, I did track, eventually cross country. And I remember the high school years being important, as we talk about addiction and how we progress into addiction, the beginning of the double life. So to different groups, I was like the athlete guy. And then at nighttime after school, I was like the druggy guy.
Yeah.
You guys can relate.
Oh, yeah. See,
100%.
the duality
Yeah.
of an addict.
Yeah, to the point where I think junior year in high school, my sister was a year younger than me. I remember her coming up to me one time and saying, "So-and-so says you're like a burnout." Like she
Wow.
was shocked.
Haven't
Like,
heard that
you're like a
word in a while.
burnout. Yeah,
Yeah,
Vin
burnout.
can relate.
You're throwing it all away.
Right. And I was like, began to lie,
Sure.
The cover up is like, no, me, I'm into sports, got my act together, It's like,
Who said that?
Wasn't until, who said that?
Yeah.
I'll kill him. Who
Yeah.
said that?
Right.
Who's gossiping about me, trash talking me. But that was beginning of the double life work. And I didn't even know it. I didn't know anything that any of this was like the formation of addiction. It's just like the covering up, the secretiveness. Again, I presented during the day as one person, and then at nighttime it was like acting out, do everything under the sun. So
Those are a lot of red flags today. You're talking late 70s, early 80s. I mean,
Right.
we know a lot more about addiction today than we did 50 years ago, 45 years ago. Like those are what you're talking about are big red flags that everybody recognizes. But back then, it's like, well, I guess not. I guess he's okay. We just didn't know a lot about it.
it was the norm. You just
Yep.
think everybody is hanging on the corner and hanging in the woods and doing it. And that was my mentality.
Yep.
Like this
I
is
feel
what
like
you do.
particularly in this area, meaning like the greater Northeast of the United States, growing up, there's always been like social norms from where we're from, Like even my generation, it was a social norm to experiment with Percocets, It was. It killed off half the millennials, you know? Half of us are dead. But when I was in high school, eating a couple perks and smoking a blunt before going to school felt normal.
Right.
Felt like that's what you were supposed to do. It went from like keggers in the woods on the weekends.
Keggers, right?
Right? Like that felt like a social norm. But by the time I was in 10th or 11th grade, like it didn't feel wrong.
Well, our
Being addicted to
norm
painkillers.
back in the day was a quart of beer before high school.
Right,
Maybe
yeah.
smoking some weed.
Yeah.
They didn't make 40s. They were quarts.
Right.
You know what I mean? You'd
Right.
On the way to, and then
And
that was just kind of a social norm, I guess.
And Vinny, you remember the 70s, so there was no just say no, that wasn't there yet. There was no education in schools either. There wasn't
Yeah.
somebody
No,
that was
you're
saying, coming down hard on you, or you didn't get suspended, or
No.
you didn't,
No education.
My dad would be the one if I was in a blackout and got banged the car up a little bit, he would be the one, but would be, son, got to be careful with alcohol. Like it's bad news, but
Yeah.
there was no, it's not like it is today where you could go to high school and tap into all these services
Right.
Oh my God.
that are all about drug
From
awareness,
Nancy Reagan
alcohol.
era like to now,
Right.
the amount of education and awareness out there is, I mean, listen, I don't see people use Percocets anymore.
Yeah.
They really don't. You really can't get them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like a regular thing that these younger, Generation Z or, generations under me, they're not readily accessing even perks or benzos like we did. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's so much awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so much action put in place to stop it. Now, does that mean that drug addicts and alcoholics are not being formulated out of those generations? Of course not. Like, there's still, the disease is still alive and well. It's just coming in different ways. But for me, it's really, really interesting to hear your perspective growing up in the 70s versus mine from the late 90s and, early 2000s and what the differences are.
Yeah.
social norms.
Even in terms of intervention, I can remember getting high before school in high school, and my first period class was psychology. and the teacher was a younger guy who was pretty hip, as we say, in tune with things. And I can remember him looking at me and me being paranoid. He knew I was high, but even back in those days, there wasn't any intervention.
Right.
It was just like
they weren't going to confront you on it.
No.
Or
send
unless it was bad, then you just got sent to the principal's office.
Yeah.
You get detention. They would still barely confront you on it.
Right.
It's a big knock it off.
Yeah,
Hey, knock it off,
exactly.
Tom. Yeah, everything's a
Stop
big
it, or
knock
you're
it
going to
off.
lose your
dude.
spot on the soccer team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We
you
didn't
didn't
want
pee-
that. I played soccer too. We never wanted that. I want to play.
You didn't have to pee in a cup or nothing like that.
No.
In high schools, they're loaded with drug tests now.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how things have the culture
how
has
it's
changed.
Yeah,
become.
right.
they have Narcan in every room in high school.
yeah.
Like, that's how much.
Yeah, or if you go away to
Yeah.
treatment, let's say you go away to treatment and you're an adolescent, you come back. A lot of times they're very supportive. You need to go to the counselor's office and talk about you're having a
and
hard
that's a
day.
great thing.
There are
It is.
resources
That's a
in
great
place.
thing.
Yeah, it is a
You
great
can
thing.
get support.
Yeah,
Because you may not get it at home.
But I guess my point is back then nobody knew. That's more of the secretiveness of use and stuff. Like there were a bunch of us that got high every morning before high school, but it wasn't like it was we were identified and there was an intervention done or anything.
Right.
Big don't ask, don't tell. That's what it was. Yeah.
Right.
Which only co-side you.
It was
getting
even
worse.
an even weekend. You mentioned keggers earlier. Even weekend keg parties. It was different back then. Like it was like parents almost promoted it. Like you would go to somebody's house for a keg party, and their dad might have a beer with you, and
He's
everybody was
handing out the
underage,
cups.
right?
Yeah, he's handing
As
out
long
the
as
cups.
you do it in front of
He's
me, you're
selling you the
okay.
cups.
Yeah. It was,
So
it
I
was
don't
the
know. We'll
oldest-
keep you safe
Yeah.
here,
Right.
So.
We'll watch that you don't get hurt here.
Yeah, and so that was I was a blackout drinker always. So it was like I remember in rehab, my counselor when I finally got to rehab, talking about not having an off switch, and that was the thing I could relate to the most. Even going way back to high school was like I just didn't have that off switch. It was like
You drank till you ran out, basically, like I did. You
Right.
know, blackout drunk.
blackout drunk. So, and then college years since I was the oldest, it wasn't like it is today. Like I didn't know. I knew my dad wanted me to go to college, but I certainly didn't know what college to pick, what career path I wanted to take. So when I went away to college up in the Poconos, East Stroudsburg, I think now they call it the university. Back then it was State College.
Yeah, right. State college.
Yeah. So I naturally, because of what occurred with my drinking and drug use in high school, even though I had intentions to get into sports, that never really happened because of I gravitated towards the guys that were like me, that used like me.
Of course.
Yeah.
7 day a week drinkers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
You had to
That's
find
where
your crowd.
progression really took off.
Yeah.
I feel like if an
3 years,
alcoholic makes it to college, like I didn't make it to college, you know what I mean? But if an alcoholic makes it to college, that's where the chains come off big time, you know?
If you go, like, I went to college too when I graduated high school, but I didn't go away like you did to
Right.
the Poconos. Like I stayed in Philadelphia. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the
whole hour
the
and a
change
half
didn't.
No, I meant like go
come
away to
off.
college. I meant
Yeah,
go away
yeah,
to
yeah,
college.
yeah,
Like move out of your
definitely.
parents' house.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I was still living in
That
home.
changed.
Well,
Definitely.
what the independence of that, even though I got a lot of leeway as the oldest, like my parents weren't real disciplinarians. Like, it was like, oh my God, I'm out. What I thought was the real world, which really wasn't. I'm out in the real world myself, and now now all the guardrails are off, right? Now it's like, so it progressed into weekend warriors, sometimes during the week to, like you said, Sammy, like 5-6 times a week. Like I was, and then multiple substances too. Like it was like something to get me up in the morning. Or if I found out from a fraternity brother of mine, they were giving out cough medicine with codeine up at the infirmary. Yeah, we'd go up there and pretend I had the flu or, a bad cough.
He would line up at the infirmary.
I did it to the point,
he
Sam,
would get in line.
where the nurse finally confronted me and said, "You've been here like 4 days in a row."
Well,
like,
I'm sure you made a lot of friends in line.
There's your intervention.
That's
Tom.
right. That's right.
Took a college nurse.
Exactly. And then the not knowing what I wanted to do, so I would just pick courses that made no sense whatsoever. I was starting to get so bad hangovers that I wouldn't schedule anything till before 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
so
right.
I was taking, by the time I kind of cleared up and was getting sober, I remember going back to Temple to see if they would accept me to get, and I was about 4 years sober going back to school. And they said, "Mr. Connell, there's some credits here I can't really apply to any major.
Right.
Yeah.
Like volleyball 1 through 5, a movie
awesome.
review
I
course.
was waiting to hear what it was. Yeah, anthropology. Yeah.
Sorry, you're not getting credit for those.
Camp administration.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
I know.
Of course,
I know.
yeah.
But that was at that point, the last 3 years of my use, that's when I really feel like the compulsion to use something, the addiction really progressed, because it went from me calling the shots to the drugs calling the shots.
Sure.
Well, this all happened in East Stroudsburg.
Yeah.
This all happened in college.
Yeah,
So
and I
what-
crashed and burned. I didn't finish there. I crashed and burned,
Right, no.
flunked out, ended up in detox. Yeah.
How did that? Tell me about the last year.
So the last year was
You were 21.
I have a buddy in 12-step that says, the last year of my drinking and the first year sober, 2 hardest years of my life.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. For
That's
me,
a weird time,
right?
man.
That was tough,
Right?
come to think of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like the last year was very, very dark for me. It progressed to using almost every day, drinking 5 times a week, using other substances.
Using what? Using anything and everything?
Yeah, pretty much. I was back in those days, and Vinny might remember this. My counselor, when I checked in rehab, called me a garbage head.
Yeah, garbage
Primary
can, yeah.
alcohol, but
You would do anything, though, right.
It always seemed like alcohol started it. Now, marijuana was like my detox drug,
Yeah.
where I kind of eased the shakes and the nausea the next day. But, it was always driven by alcohol. I would try really everything, angel dust.
Whatever was out there.
I always say everything but heroin, but I don't even know. There were some times where there was one night I was hanging with the only guy in our frat that did heroin, and
What years?
he said he injected me, but I don't really remember, so I don't really know. I don't really believe it. Like I
wouldn't
what I
believe
mean.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like taboo. Like
It was.
when we were growing up,
Yeah.
70s, 80s, like you had to be like, I don't want to say, living under a bridge, but I mean,
It was like
that's
really inner city,
but
hardcore type of
That's
drug.
what you would imagine.
Not like your era, Frank.
Yeah.
Sammy, like, where
right. You
the
could
pills
mainstream.
and everything was like.
It was mainstream.
Yeah.
Like back then, it was taboo. Like they were the guys living on the street that were doing heroin.
Right.
We're still college, living in our parents' house, whatever. Functioning.
Yes.
But heroin use.
Agree.
That was like taboo,
Yeah, and it was pre-Percocet.
Well, I think if we look at heroin
Oxy.
use generationally, there was a massive influx of heroin from Vietnam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam brought heroin back to suburban America big time in what is that, late 70s, early 80s, and heroin kind of became this more used drug. It died off, right?
No, it didn't.
No,
it didn't die off. It stayed in that
Element,
like
kind of.
that homeless
No,
population.
but I'm saying like
or
from
whatever.
the mainstream. I didn't
It
know
was
it didn't
never
die
really
off.
mainstream.
No,
That's
I
what
think it
your
was
generation.
your generation.
Well, my
was really,
generation, I
with
was
the
gonna say,
pharmaceutical,
with the
with
opioid
oxys.
epidemic
Yeah.
and the
That's
Part
when you
30s.
really saw, because from the cost of the pills, anybody who's young who's hooked on pills, then they would flip to heroin because it's cheaper.
Right.
I'm
and
sorry
that's
if
how they
this
got
is
hooked
harsh
on
to
heroin.
hear
Yeah.
for anyone, but there's a reason that heroin has killed millions of people because the way that it makes you feel is
Like
you
a
know,
hug from God.
like a hug from God.
Thank God I never experienced that.
You know what I mean? Like
I don't know what you mean, but I believe you because I know you've been through it, Sam.
there's and even in
come
the
out
end
the
for
other
me,
side.
like I stopped that when I was before I was even 20, and I found alcohol, which was my one true love at the end of the day. You know.
So our era, like cocaine was big, but it was too expensive. So crystal meth and crank were the poor man's.
Cocaine, yeah.
So we were like, so my big three was alcohol, any kind of speed that would make me drink longer,
Yep.
and marijuana as the detox drug.
As the come down.
Looking back, I mean, I didn't know it at the time.
I was alcohol and any kind of speed. Cocaine, meth were huge with me.
In the end, for me, it
Alcohol was number one, though.
Right.
I like drinking brown liquor and smoking crack because I couldn't have one without the other. You know what I mean? I said, I'm not going to just eat a jelly sandwich. I need some peanut butter. You know, that's what I always used to say. But
And crack, I think, was the 80s, right?
late 80s,
Crack
early 90s.
starts-
So
No,
I was
crack
sober by
started-
then. I never experienced
Here's the
that whole
thing.
nightmare. Yeah.
When I went to treatment in '86, crack was kind of coming off the islands into the southern U.S. It made it to New York already, but it was hitting big time in like the Florida area because I went to treatment in Florida.
Okay.
And that's where I saw a lot of it. And then when I got home, obviously but it still, it was just coming into the southern U.S. like in a big way back in the mid '80s.
Right. It was, and then by the early 90s, it was
everywhere.
epidemic.
Yeah, it
you
was
know what I
epidemic
mean? Like
by
that's
the
bring in
90s, yeah.
Nancy Reagan, you know, just say no and stuff
say
like that. And I mean, crack hasn't gone anywhere. You know what I mean? It is still, it's one of the things that's still alive and well. You drive down Philadelphia right now, you won't go 4 blocks without seeing a crackhead. You won't. And you know it when you see it because, you know, there's a big difference between a junkie and a crackhead, in my opinion. Their lives are very different. It is sheerly unmanageable at face value.
Yeah.
Smoking crack cocaine around the clock. It is so detrimental, and it teeters on the edge of just having a mental health diagnosis eventually, you know?
Yeah. So speaking of mental health diagnosis, so
Good
when you
segue.
asked about the last year, like, so what happened was like the last 3 months I'm using every day. I'm feeling like I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm starting to hallucinate, which I didn't know was withdrawal. I'm shaking. You know, if I don't have something in my system, my hands are starting to shake and I'm feeling really uncomfortable. And these mood swings started to happen where I would, you know, think about suicide or like, what's going on with me? And again, I don't know it's addiction. I just know something's terribly wrong. And I'm in this dark place that I've never been before in my life. You know, I'm only using with 2 other guys because I'm so paranoid. I'm not trusting anybody else, you know, and they're just like me. They're pounding stuff away. And so like about 2 weeks, I go on this run for 2 weeks, a lot of meth and drinking. And it culminated in this end of the semester. And at this point, I'm not even going to class. I'm not going to class anymore. I'm either too paranoid or too into full force addiction. And, so I go on this bender. It was a big end of the semester party that the fraternity had. And I wake up the next day and you know that panic that you feel. So it's probably about 12 hours after I've used anything and I can't find my car and I got to return it to my folks. Right. And I'm like panicking, and luckily one of my roommates like, oh, I think I know where it's at. So we're going all around campus. We find the car, and I'm just insisting, like, I got to get this car home. So it's about an hour and a half from East Stroudsburg to where I lived in Upper Moreland, and I'm driving down 611. It's at nighttime, and there's a song on the radio. Ironically, it's The Doors. This is the end.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, how about that, right?
The death song.
I don't know why I remember that, but
The death song.
and I'm crying and I'm thinking, I'm driving, I'm crying, and I'm thinking my life sucks. I look over in the passenger seat, and I had been hallucinating. I see this thing there. I don't know how to describe it other than this white poltergeist kind of, and I'm freaking out. I'm screaming. I feel like 1,000 pins and needles in my hands and in my feet. and I'm terrified to look over. Like I didn't know. Now I know it was like a withdrawal hallucination, but so I'm driving, and then I found out later I used angel dust the night before. So it
there you go.
could have been something.
Sure.
Yeah. Little this, little
Good
that.
combination
Yeah.
of all the above.
Right. So I turn on the inside car light because I don't want to look over. And I'm telling you guys, at 12 years at Catholic school, I'm trying to remember the Our Father just so I can drive home. And all I can remember is Our Father who art in heaven, Our Father who art in heaven. And I'm just repeating that. And at one point I think, I got to ask for help. I'm losing it here. I pull into this driveway of the restaurant. I put the car in park, and I hear like claws scraping the sides of the car. And I think, I'm having like a breakdown. I can't go in there. They're going to send me away somewhere. Now, I didn't know nothing about treatment, but this is the mind that you're in when you're that disoriented. Get back in the car. Somehow I make it home. Go into my house. My mom's doing the dishes in the kitchen. And she turns around and says, "Oh, my God." So she hasn't seen me in like 3 months. You guys see me today. I had long hair down to my shoulders. I had my ear pierced because it was cool back then.
Absolutely.
And I'm shaking like a leaf. And I'm 123 pounds. So right now I'm like 220, right? I'm 123 pounds soaking wet because I'm not eating right. And you guys know the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do.
And she goes, "Oh, my God, what's wrong?" And I'm crying. I said, "Mom, I think I have a problem with drugs and alcohol." Now, where that came from, I have no idea.
That's all them Our Fathers
It must have been, right?
forced out of you. You asked for help.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from because nobody ever said what addiction looks like or whatever. But my mom calls my aunt, who at the time had 7 years in AA.
Oh, cool.
And they were high school for best buddies. And she gets Barb on the phone and she says, "Sounds like he's going through withdrawal." Like, because she was an addiction counselor at the time. And thank God my mom kept me. So my mom was distraught. She doesn't know what to do. Get him over to Warminster Detox, you know? And so what I call my looking back, all of this is looking back, right? You guys know that. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed and my dad goes, "Son, do you want to, I'll take you over there tonight or you want to wait till tomorrow morning?" And a little voice in my head said, "Go tonight, because I don't think you're going to go tomorrow," right? Because that was always my pattern.
You already knew.
I'd get in a jam and then, feel okay. Oh, I can. Yeah. So I go over there and probably we know the system these days. Went through the ER. It's not even there's not even a hospital there anymore. Probably met with a social worker or a nurse, whoever does the intake, and she said there were 2 questions. The only 2 questions I remember. She said, "How often do you drink?" Now I just told you what the last year was. I said, "Maybe a 6-pack every other day." I'm totally minimizing, right?
Yeah.
Look at her in the eye, and she goes, "Have you ever used drugs?" And I go, "No, ma'am, never in my life."
Yeah.
And she,
Yeah, of course.
thank God there was no managed care back then. She just said, "I think we're going to put you in the detox."
Yeah.
Good for
And
her.
I'm thinking in my head, detox, I know you have a psych unit here. Like, I'm having a breakdown. Put me on the psych. So that's how I got into detox. Next thing I know, they're issuing me the blue pajamas and the paper slippers. And I spent 7 days in there right before Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent 7 days there. Shake, rattle, and rolling. This is a funny story, but it wasn't funny then. But so I'm still hallucinating. So at some point on day 1, and again, the details are cloudy, they hit me with something to knock me out because I guess they figure out I've been up for like 2 weeks doing all kinds of stuff.
I wish a detox would do that nowadays. Just put me out for 48
I remember them taking me in
hours,
and the
yeah.
2 guys kind of grabbing me and then they inject me with whatever. And
Oh, my God.
let's say 24 hours pass. I'm out cold. I wake up. There's this haze, and I see a priest blessing me. And I'm thinking, my first thought is, "Oh, my God, he's giving me last rites."
dead.
Yeah, I'm dead. Right, Vin? I'm dead. Like, well, here my mom had told our parish priest that I was in Warminster General on the detox unit. And he went over there. He was giving me the blessing of the sick. And I remember that moment because it's kind of like, you know that picture in AA, I guess it was Bill and Bob,
Yeah,
and
and he's
there's a
sitting by
guy
the bed,
sitting on the bed,
yeah.
and I sat up and I'm putting together that I must have checked in the hospital, and he said, "Son, what are you gonna?" It was right before Christmas. "Son, what are you gonna do for me? Where are you gonna go from here?" I had no idea, right? I'm realizing it's Christmas. I have no gifts. I'm the oldest of 7. I'm embarrassed. I started to feel that shame. And so I asked my roommate, who was this guy named Ernie, who had had 7 years, and then he relapsed. And he was real familiar with, he had been in a couple of these detoxes. So I hung with him. He seems like he knows what he's doing, right? How to order sausage and get extra. Right.
Yeah.
All the important things in detox.
Ernie was savvy. Yeah.
So he said he was talking about this place in Roxborough that had a 60-bed drug and alcohol unit. And he was going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sammy knows the name, and it
Yeah,
was
I
in
know
the
well.
80s.
I've been there, yeah.
And he said, I said, well, how do you get in there? 'Cause I said, I can't go home. I'm embarrassed. I'm the oldest son. I'm feeling lower than whale. Crap,
Yep.
And he said, well, go talk to Jim Hartman, this counselor, Jim Hartman. I went over and knocked on Jim's door, and I said, hey, listen, he's dead now, so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. He said, yeah, I can get you in there. I guess I had good insurance, and he said, I can get you in there. And he set it all up for me. And that was where, I don't remember much about the detox, but I remember I was the only admission Christmas Eve, 1981.
Wow.
And a girl named Randy checked me in, went through all my belongings to make sure I wasn't smuggling drugs in and I didn't have weapons. And, that's typical protocol, right?
Still to this day. Yeah.
And that was where the journey started for me.
How long were you there?
I was probably there 25, 26 days. Yeah. Because it was 7 days of detox, whatever adds
Yeah.
up to 30. So
Yeah.
you're better at math than me. So
23, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 23.
That would be 23,
I might have
yeah.
got an extra couple days because, So they kept you longer in detox, I guess, back then. And then you did the rehab part. But there were people that were staying there 40 days, 45 days, But for me, I guess, it was like, I'm done. And that was where I met guys like you guys who were just like me. And we had a group leader. And I just remember the off switch, like I referred to earlier. And I remember people coming in around the holidays, and I felt horrible. I felt like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I could do this. I'm 21. And people came in like AA and NA from the outside, and they just had a sparkle. So I'm not going to say I wanted to stay sober. I was curious enough to want to know what the sparkle was. And they made fun of themselves, and they told these stories, and I could relate to the stories. And I was just like, curious about that. So back then, there weren't any IOPs and PHPs. I think there was only a guy, Hank, out in media that did a alcohol group.
Right.
And a guy, Joe, Joe Curran did a group for young people that were hooked on drugs. And those were the only two that were really doing anything for aftercare,
Right.
unless you went to a halfway house. And I wasn't going to a halfway house. So I ended up going home and living with my parents, and then they said, 90 and 90, start making meetings. So I
You
went to
just
both
did it.
fellowship. Yeah, I kind of like got home. Well, got home. I'm home for about 4 hours, and I start to feel uncomfortable. Right? That tightness, and go back to my dad's liquor cabinet to see. Because we had a family session, and the guy, Tom, who was my counselor, said, throw all the booze out if he's going to come home.
Yeah, of course.
So I was just going to see, but really, you guys know what was going on. If there had been a bottle in there.
You had that adrenaline
Exactly.
rush opening the doors.
Yeah.
And then it
So
was
then
gone. It was gone like that, right?
I'm like freaking out. I'm thinking I'm 4 hours out of rehab, right? And already I'm looking for a drink. So I called Barb again. And she said, meet me at this clubhouse. And that was where I went to the clubhouse. That was where guys came up to me and were like, here's my
You were
number.
home, finally.
Yes. It was that relief. So I didn't even have a car. I think I walked 3 miles to my first meeting on the outside.
I was just thinking yesterday about how many guys drove me to meetings in the first 18 months of sobriety, all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, my first sponsor lived in the city, and we went to meetings in the Malvern, Greater Delaware County mainline area. That's where I got sober. And I'm thinking back now, the other day I'm sitting in traffic. I'm like, I can't believe this fucking guy would drive out, pick me up, drive further out to Malvern, pick me up to take me to a meeting in media, to then drive me back to Malvern, to then go back to the city.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's being in
that's-
service.
Dude.
That's the length that, what people,
And
what
I
the
would give
general
anybody
public,
a ride anyway. I mean, I give my buddy a ride to JFK when he's going on when he needs me to at any time of day, just because it's second nature. I'm happy to do it. It has
Well,
nothing to do with He's an
it goes-
AA just like me. But
It goes back to, in order to keep it, you got to give it away. That was them giving away.
Oh,
know,
no, they were doing that
favors
for
to use.
themselves, not for me. Yeah.
They could keep their sobriety.
For
you know what I
both.
mean? For
but
both.
I think that's why shows like this are so great, because I think a lot of people need to know that that's the level of effort that some people take in these meetings to help you. They don't
Yeah.
even know you. You're a stranger.
Yeah.
But because it's helping them stay sober and could potentially help you stay sober, they're willing to go the extra yard, right?
Okay, because it, honestly, first and foremost, and you may say I'm wrong, but I'd say a man takes another man through the steps primarily to help himself stay sober. You know what I mean? And then hopefully the other man will get sober in the process. You know, knock on wood, God willing, he does what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But like that's what I have to do. I have to do that. And I don't get to do it all the time anymore because it's really hard to get a guy to number 5. I don't know if you have that same experience, but like I'd say 1 in 12 get to 5, you know?
Yeah. I stay very involved. Like I have buddies who
You are the most
are sober
involved.
as long as me and Vinny, and they just kind of they do their own thing. I mean, I think they're all right and stuff, but I've always stayed very connected because I feel like service, like we're talking about service, very important for me. And you guys know professionally, I do stuff too, but service wise, but also it's a two-way street. So if like everybody graduated, then when I went to that first meeting, who would have reached out to me, right?
Of course.
When I was scared and out, and came close to drinking 4 hours out, if everybody just kind of left after a certain period of time, who would be there for me? So I kind of look at it that way, like it's a guard against getting too cocky, staying connected, and it's also. It keeps me humble and remembering that what the real purpose is, if a guy needs a ride or if somebody wants to go over the steps, then I'll just, I got to make myself available, And the benefit, as you guys know, to the new guy is he's learning the wisdom of what we know about sobriety. And then also, it's as me and you, as the three of us are talking about those days when I hit bottom, I can remember the details, but the rest of the time, if I'm not reminded of that, then I can easily forget that. And that's what the newcomer gives to us is like a reminder. When you have a guy shaking next to you, it's pretty hard to ignore that I felt like him.
Yeah.
44 years ago. And I sat in that chair and shook like, like there was no tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And that's a great reminder.
Yeah,
right?
the newcomers kind of keep us going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think about, I'll never forget a time where you greatly helped me. I don't know if you remember this, but I was struggling with my defects of character, and you gave me a very small book called Drop the Rock.
Drop the Rock. Yeah.
You had me read that book. I think we went through like a piece of it together. I remember we sat in King of Prussia out to lunch one day. That book changed the way I view alcoholism.
Yeah.
Entirely.
Yeah, great book.
It completely altered the way I viewed how sick I was because I came to realize that I hadn't had the desire to drink in a really long time. But I was still very sick, and my alcoholism was solely defined by my defects of character and how they were managed in my day-to-day life. And I still to this day reference that book. And there was a time right after you gave it to me, I was like the poster child for Drop the Rock. I was like, everybody needs to read this fucking book. Everybody needs to read this book. And it's not for everybody. That's like the thing I've learned about it over time. It's written very strangely. The verbiage is it honestly looks like a couple therapists sat down and decided to write a book or like a play that was based on step 6 and 7.
That's awesome.
And
I think it's like, I think it was, I forget who wrote it, but 3 people, but I think they were in longer term recovery, and they realized not a lot is written in the original step book about 6 and 7. So they went into more
it's
detail.
2 paragraphs. It's
Right.
2 paragraphs. And
Went
more
into
often
more
than not,
detail.
we go to the 12 and 12 to like kind of break it down further. But I don't know, man. When I grow away from my solution, which I do periodically, like it happens to me, ego takes over, character defects become very relevant. I have lack of a relationship with a higher power. I look to that. That's where I go. And it's like a swift kick right in the back of the neck. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I still have to do this as I wave that flimsy little fucking paperback book. And I'm like, and I smile to myself because I know I knew that was the solution to my problem all the time. The whole time. That was always it. It was always that. I just forgot. I started to take credit, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, well, you forget about the steps is they were written after the fact. They were written by Bill W., but then also input from the first 100. And they were looking back at how they got sober. So they're really a prescription for how to live sober. I think a lot of times, what I notice is somebody new who's trying to get it, they think the steps will help them get sober.
Yeah.
Whereas I see it, and this is just my opinion, you get sober and then you need direction. How do I live?
It'll keep you sober.
How do
It'll
I
help you
stay
stay
sober?
sober.
Right.
Yeah.
And that might be a little technicality, but you know what I'm talking about. What I see in the treatment industry that drives me crazy is like, so that once you detox somebody, then the work begins about relapse prevention. And that involves, what are they going to do socially? What are they going to do psychologically, health-wise? What are you going to do? And then, of course, you touched on earlier, spirituality. What am I going to do about this relationship with a higher power that could potentially help me get through that first year, right? Because we were talking about the last year. And then the first year sober, I was miserable. Like here I am. If I'm going to commit to not using anymore, and one of the benefits of using was always I don't have to feel any of this.
That's right. Or think about anything.
So every day I'd wake up and I'd be like, I'd start to think about what I could use that day, and then my second thought from going to the meetings was like, I don't know if I could do this. I really don't know. That's where a day and a time came in. It was so handy because it was like guys would say, you got to break it down. Don't think of it. You're 21. You could know. Because I was saying, Vinny, I was saying things like, well, what am I going to do at my wedding? I would tell my first one, what am I going to do at my wedding?
Yeah.
When they have the toast and I'm not drinking, and he would just listen. He was a very patient man. He would listen and then he'd say, maybe we should work on the dating before we get to the
wedding. To be honest with you, I was 20 when I was in treatment, about 6 weeks before I turned 21. I tell this all the time. And, I was a thinker, like, average lifespan. I got 60 more years. How am I going to go through that without drinking or using any drugs or whatever? And my therapist at the time, I don't remember his name. I do remember what he looked like. But he told me, he said, I don't care what you do tomorrow. He said, today, I don't want you to drink. And that just clicked with me. And I was like, oh, that's what you mean by a day at a time. We're not looking at when I turn 40 or 50 or 60. We're looking at just don't drink or do drugs today. If you can make it to you going to bed, I promise you'll feel different in the morning, because your brain will take care of that desire overnight. And that's really what it struck me right then and there. Like, that's what one day at a time really means. Don't look to when you're 40 years from now, when you're 60.
Yeah.
Just look to today and stay and don't drink or do drugs.
And then if you break it down then I started to focus that first year on exactly what you're talking about, just getting through each day. Next thing you know, I got like 2 years somehow. And remember, I wasn't even sure I wanted to stay sober coming out of rehab, right? But I'm curious enough to keep going. I'm in enough pain, spiritual and emotional pain, to keep going. And these meetings, I'm getting something that's interesting me. So actually, it's like 2 years. And I remember a guy asked me to speak for my 2 years. And I got 5 minutes into my story, like we're talking, and I started to get choked up. All this, but it was gratitude.
Right.
And I realized, I got through sharing and everything, but I realized driving home that night, like 2 years had elapsed. I was going to these meetings. I had money in my savings account for the first time. I had just bought my first used car. I was able to hold a full-time job for the first time in my life, and have my employer say I was doing a good job. I was starting to get back healthy again into sports and basketball and recovery softball, and I was starting to get the trust back from my family where they didn't,
Sure.
didn't always take their purse when they left the room,
Right.
if you were
Yeah,
visiting
exactly.
or whatever. and I was starting to, go on these men's retreats with my sponsor and just kind of learn more about spirituality. And I remember driving home that night and thinking, the only difference in this equation is I haven't included alcohol and drugs. And that was really a pivotal point for me, because then I bought into the rest of my life. I really want this to be my life. Like I think at that point I knew enough time had elapsed and there were enough good things starting to happen that I thought the only difference is it must have been the drugs and alcohol that was stopping me.
You
right?
finally put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
But at 23, that's really good.
Yeah.
You had that epiphany, and 2 years later, you had a really big epiphany.
Yeah.
Like, look what I got.
Yeah.
I got a used car. I got my head on my shoulders. Like, you
New
have
set
arrived.
of friends. Like there were other
Right.
young people I was
Exactly.
meeting that were the
I feel
same
like my
journey.
whole life had just started, you know?
Yeah.
And I was 20, and I hadn't been through it, man, But like you really wake up one day and you're like, especially in those first 2 years. That second year is so magical. You know what I mean? Because you really figure out who you are.
Absolutely.
There's just like really nothing quite like it. I wish, and then you just become an adult. You know what I mean? You just become, then you're just a human. I feel like in the first 2 years, it's like, oh, he's doing so good. I can leave my purse around him. You know what I mean?
Well, then
you get all
reality
these nice
sets in.
pats
Or he
on the
could
back.
drive me to school.
Well, you
or-
get all these big thumbs up. You get gold stars for being a decent human being,
Right.
just being a
What
regular.
we should have been doing all
functioning
along.
adult.
Exactly.
Yeah, for being like you're still like behind the 8 ball of where you're supposed to be in life, but you get all these thumbs up and gold stars for just for not killing yourself, basically. You know
or
what I mean?
anyone else.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think I was telling you guys before we went on, like that, and then what happened was 4 years sober, it always bugged me that I had flunked out of college and that I crashed and burned, and so I went back to college, went back to night school. Temple was the only school that would take me with all those crazy course selections I took, and they gave me a shot. I remember I took an English class and a math class, and if I could pass them, they were going to let me in the program. So I did go back and finish my degree, which I'm proud of today, which was actually a business degree. That was the thing they could put most of my credits into.
Right.
And then it was like the year following. Once I finished the business degree, I remember thinking I was selling copiers, and I hated it for a guy in the rooms, and I said, I think I'm going to go back to where I went through rehab. The psychology of it fascinated me. At this point, I was into, like Sammy said, I was into self-growth and learn,
Sure.
And that was when I went and took an entry-level job in Roxborough. I was a psych tech.
But you worked there.
Yeah, I worked there.
You went back
that?
and worked there.
Went back and worked there.
How about
Oh, I
that?
didn't know
And then
that.
became an addiction counselor.
Full
That was
circle.
always my dream. Yeah, become an addiction counselor.
So where did you go? But you went back to school, obviously, after your business degree
Yeah.
to get into this recovery field that we're in.
Yeah,
Where'd you go?
Back in those days, you could run. Back in those days before 2003, you could run groups
Right.
being a recovering guy.
Right.
But I went back to night school at Chestnut Hill College. and
Chestnut
got
Hill.
my master's in psychology. Yeah, and then it took I think it took a couple of years, and then in 2002, met the requirements for licensure. So I became a licensed counselor in Pennsylvania. And your coursework at a graduate level is all about all kinds of mental health stuff, not just addiction stuff,
Yep.
and so that's where I've been for
25 years almost, right?
like 40, I think.
And
Oh,
what
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
From a psych
whole
tech
time.
up to a master's level clinician.
I've had every job under the sun in
Every
behavioral
single
health.
one.
Yeah. I always tell college interns from psych tech to CEO.
to
you know.
CEO.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. So it's been I would have never thought it would lead to a career, but it's been an incredibly rewarding, draining at times, but rewarding career too, with all aspects of the industry. Yeah.
And now you're like right where you're supposed to be.
Right where I'm supposed, semi-retirement.
Yeah.
Right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah,
That's
but
why
like-
I golf so much, Sammy.
Of course, yeah.
Well, you earned it. You're 40
You've earned
years in
it
the
10
industry.
times over, but I also
Sure.
think, I don't know. You know, it's so funny. I was up late on the phone with a friend last night, another marketing treatment guy. And we were talking about the way that the different markets work across the country and the way that the operators and the marketers are different. And I was saying to him, isn't it so great that we were able to like kind of come up in Pennsylvania around guys like Tom Connell and learned how to do things like the right way, like the above board, like standard way of doing things, because we look at some of these guys in these different states and like their standard and norm of what's appropriate or how to do this is ass backwards, and it, in my opinion. And I'm sitting there with him and I'm like, aren't we just like so lucky, man? Because I see a lot of people struggle at this. A lot of people have a really, really hard time, and they do it in a kind of ugly way. And I think we just have it made. We have it made, man. Like there's no better place to come up than in the Pennsylvania market around guys like Tom Connell. You know what I mean? And I referenced a few others too that I won't name right now, but.
Well, it's interesting. It's like what I see happening now is like a passing of the baton. So you have, I mean, right outside the Philly area has been a great place to practice and learn, and there's a lot of good treatment. But you know, it's like I feel blessed. The two other guys that I'm partners with the outpatient company we run we're all licensed counselors. So we wanted to build a company that was just kind of more driven by grassroots, helping the community wherever we were going to be located. We were going to help the community tap into. In the early days, it was just SUD, substance use. Now it's mental health and adolescence. But it's nice for us that things are driven by clinical decisions rather than. I know some other people nationally don't have that advantage. They're more driven by, let's say, they're owned by a venture capitalist company. Or whatever.
Of course,
Bottom line.
yeah.
They
private
have to
equity.
make decisions that maybe they're not even in favor of, but they kind of have to do. And hey, look, this model that we're doing right now is just really taken off. It's just really exploded. How much of that is timing, maybe the pandemic and stuff, but it's just been really interesting because we were only going to really open one site in Westchester, and then it just kind of
And it turned into 3, and
then 7.
now it's 7.
And we're like, at one point, we're like 5 years into it. What do we don't even know what we're doing yet. It's business owners.
And like everyone we know is like, I'm just going to go work for
Everybody-
them. Yeah,
everybody's
everyone's like, I'm going to get licensed and go work for Tom.
Yeah, but as therapists, as 3 licensed clinicians that own the place, you may not have known what you were doing in business, but you certainly knew what you were doing in the treatment model that you wanted
Clinically, right?
Clinically,
Yeah,
you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, we would, like Sammy was alluding to earlier, we kind of like a lot of our colleagues were well known in this area, and so in the early days we tried to recruit some people. And
They
then we
all
just,
came up under you,
Yeah,
too.
we just kind of.
And then the best part about it is these are 3 buddies, dude.
Right.
They're not like 3 therapists that came up doing
Right.
clinical work together. Dude, they're buddies. They
Right.
were buddies before they were therapists, okay? That's the part you don't understand, and that's like the really magical part about the story.
And all got sober young, like
All
you
got sober
like you, Sam.
around each
And you,
other.
and really you for your
Yeah.
era.
Yeah.
It's like we got, and I tell this to new kids, I call them kids, but they're adults, people that are venturing the field all the time. Like, you don't realize, and the 3 of us know, the 3 of us have, and I'm not tooting all our horns, but the 3 of us have helped. If you look at our careers, have helped so many people.
Thousands.
Get help. Thousands. And I look at us 3 and just think, what a blessing to get it early, because you hear so many people struggle.
Yep.
They don't get sober till their 40s and 50s. And it's just like magical that you can, when you do get sober young, I think one of the gifts are you sobriety can have so much more impact too on helping the thousands of people that we never imagined that we would touch so many lives with this little project, but it has,
You know, it's funny. That's become like my concept of God has been like, why was I able to get sober at 24 or 25? What dictates that? Because I was institutionalized many times, many, many, many times. And then one day I approached another man and I decided I was just going to fucking listen, I was just going to do what he told me to do. Now, is that because I had a newborn baby and I had just come off of a couple years of sobriety? Like, you know what I mean? What decided that? You remember? You were there.
Yeah.
I was at that 7 a.m. meeting. I was freaking out. I didn't know what was going to happen. I detoxed on a couch.
Right.
You know what I mean? The last time.
It's called the hand of God.
Dude. And the longer I stay sober, the more I'm like so baffled by the fact that one day I decided I was going to do exactly what was suggested of me. And now my life looks like this.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And it's just mind-boggling, this, because I've been studying it for all this time, and it's just, why people get it at certain times. Is it a spiritual thing, or is it just, something that intellectually goes off in their heads? I don't know. It doesn't, sometimes you think somebody's going to do really good because they sound really good, and you find out they relapse, a week after they got out of treatment. Other people, the guy in the group that you think will never make it, he's calling you every year on his anniversary, and he's got 10 years.
And he made it.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of variables that kind of come into play.
Some it's a fear of going through. Like I can't go through what I went through. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't survive it a second time. So it's like a fear. It's also like consequences that some people fear. Like I can't get arrested again. You know what I mean? Like I can't. There's a fear of screwing up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then there's that spiritual awakening. Like, oh my God, how did I get here? How did I get involved in all this garbage? And sometimes it's a mental health issue where you just through this program you kind of fix your brain. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you don't need those. Those helpers, the drugs, the alcohol, things like that. It's different for everybody, I guess.
I think it is different for everybody. There's different, there's a couple different categories of addiction, but then you're right, Vin. Like you could be sober 2 years and you really have an underlying anxiety disorder that's crippling you. But that's what's great about all the therapy that's out there. Like, hey, get help.
Yeah.
You're just asking for a different area, right?
Yeah.
Get help.
Definitely
keep it going. But yeah, and I think it's like we've talked about today. It's hard in the beginning, and you need a place where you can just kind of vent that, whether that's therapy, whether it's meetings, whether it's your church. There's a whole lot of different avenues that people take these days. But you got to keep addressing those things that could set you back again. Maybe one day it was your little kid that kept you sober that day.
To get it was. That's what I always say. She helped me get sober, and I had to learn how to stay sober for myself. Yeah.
The next day it's a meeting, or the day after that it's your boss.
Absolutely.
It's all these little things that kind of come together. But the key is, and us three know this. Like you'll never get to what we're talking about if you continue to keep going back to what's not working. So if you continue to pick up, that's the foundation. That's step one. Is like, every day I don't pick up. I'm either moving towards a drink or away from a drink. Once you kind of get detox and get sober a little bit, it's like that becomes a question every day. I want to stay sober today. So then you start to do the things that you've been taught to keep you in that stage, right?
You do the things that are suggested of you.
Yeah.
That's it. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You've been
is
around
it
a long
deep,
time.
tough question, or
It could be. Well, I have some opinions.
I like the easier ones.
Yeah,
the
I
softball.
haven't even been
Testing,
around.
that's not our thing anymore.
I haven't been around a quarter of as long as you, but I experienced a great change in what recovery looks like through the COVID years.
Yeah.
I think it changed a lot. I think what's appropriate clinically changed a lot, and I think what the standard attendee of an AA meeting changed a lot too. I think it was kind of weird, and I wonder what your opinion is on that, or if you even agree with me, or even as you've seen AA change over the course of 40 years.
So you talking more about AA changing or the COVID
kind of everything,
telehealth thing?
I mean,
Kind of everything.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I don't think I admire people that have stayed or got sober through COVID. I don't think I could have done it. Like
That's tough.
That is so tough. Like
Yeah.
I needed the guys that would either give me a hug or get my face right. I think I'll answer obviously AA has changed, but it's good. It's still good. Like in the early days when guys like me and Vin, our generation got sober, way more crosstalk, way more confrontive. Most of the clubhouses you were at. In other words, I remember I was 9 months sober, and me and my sponsor were driving to a meeting, and I was thinking about going back for bartending school. Obviously, bad idea, but my sister was making bank
Right.
bartending. I thought, and she was saying, just enroll in this school, and so my sponsor didn't say anything. So I'm thinking I should do this. It's a great idea, right? And Walt goes, why don't you bring it up in the home group tonight and see what the guys. Vinny knows what's
God.
Get a little group conscious. Yeah.
So I go in, my first hand up, throw the idea out there. The next 13 guys that share completely hammer me.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, can you get drunk in a heartbeat? Are you crazy? Are you idiotic? No way. That's a horrible idea. Man, I drove home from that meeting and my sponsor's smirking. And he
knew
I
what
said,
he led you to.
Thanks for the advice. But,
Right.
hey, I definitely knew that was a bad idea. And I think that sometimes I get the whole purpose of letting people share. I have mixed feelings about that. I think for me, like I needed that direct honesty because I was not thinking right. I had some bad ideas that if guys hadn't spoke up in my home group, I probably wouldn't be sober today.
Yeah.
I probably would have pursued them, right?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So I think
needed
kind
to
of
be
like
banged over the head.
different air. I think there's pockets where you still get some of that. I think there's a lot of, no crosstalk meetings, in certain areas. And luckily enough, there's so many meetings in the area that you can kind of find what works
the ones
for you.
that works.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
You can find the
Yeah.
ones in the right communities that work for you, and that
Right.
always grateful for that.
And I think the other big change I'll say is like, and maybe to fault 12 step a little bit, I think they've let the rehabs do a lot of the work that maybe they used to do, and maybe to get back to that. But I still think it's a great movement, and for whatever what's perfect about the movement is like it works, right?
It's proven.
There's no president. There's no like I'm not in charge of it, thank God. And and so there's enough people that care about, like Vinny said earlier, the service and taking people through the steps. That each group they can vote on it. They can vote on what kind of format. They can vote on what I know a meeting in West Philly. I went into the clubhouse and it was like it was in a tough area. It was probably one of the warmest meetings I've ever been to.
Those are some of the best.
Dude.
Yes.
So you guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh
It's
my
like
God, I definitely.
these guys are just accepting me.
Yep.
There's nothing better
Some
than
of the
walking into a CA meeting in a rough area. Dude.
Right. I used to go to meetings. I would find meetings like I wanted to see how we all lived. You know what I mean? The rich guys, the poor guys, whatever. You go into a meeting in Camden or North Philly or whatever. Some of the people there, they didn't know where their next meal was coming from,
Right.
but they did know one thing. They wanted to be sober. And that was real good recovery, real good meetings. And, like it's just different. It hits different, know?
Yeah. Or I've been asked to go into, prisons and detention centers to speak. And I'm thinking, well, you guys heard parts of my story. Like, it wasn't like I had a bottom that was in any way criminal. These guys aren't going to relate to me. And I'll go in and share my story. And the opposite happens. Like 30 guys will come up that are in there for life.
Yep.
And they're saying, thank you for coming in. Like, I got so much out of you, what you shared. And so I think we got to remember that. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, this disease does not discriminate.
Never.
You know?
No,
All
I
kinds
mean-
of backgrounds, all kinds of stories.
Right. And
yeah.
and how many relapses have we seen over the years that happen 5 years in,
Yeah.
10 years in?
Right.
Like that's, and you know, I don't scratch my head over that because I know we're all like a day away from
Yeah.
being where we were way back.
Yeah.
You know, your brain, you know, your brain thinks you got drunk yesterday. You know what I mean? So once you hit that slippery slope, you're gone. But I mean, we've seen so many of these relapses where people have, you know, 5, 10, 15 years of sobriety and bang, they're out there again. It's like, well, how did that happen?
Right.
You know, what did you forget?
Right.
And what happens is you move further from the program. You know, when you ask yourself, God, you know, why are, you know, I'm not close with God anymore. Well, who moved? God didn't move.
Right.
You did.
Right.
You know, like, shit
Well, we-
happens.
It's so true, yeah, and remembering the pain. You know, there's no way. Like if you're, I don't know. I just look at my ego. If I'm out there on my own, too far away from my support people, that I agree with what Vinny just said. Like my thinking, it doesn't matter how much time you are away from a drink. Like you're thinking. Like last night, I went over. My dad's has some health problems. I went over his house, and I'm going to grab a water from the fridge. Why? I haven't had a drink in 44 years. Why do my eyes automatically go to the area where the six-pack is sitting?
Right.
Always.
Right?
Because
And
it's natural.
it looks cold, doesn't it? Yeah.
And that's what amazes me about
Yeah.
this disease is like it's always there in the background, just kind of
yeah.
patiently waiting
We had
for us to just kind of let them in the door again,
Yeah.
you know?
We had a guy on last week. His name was Mark, episode 38. Really good. He said it right. He said it's cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient.
Patient, yeah.
You have to remember the last word. It's patient. It's ready for
Yeah.
you to look at that in that door of the refrigerator where
Right.
the six-pack sits.
Right.
It's waiting for you, man. It's patient.
It is, and you know, just like for guys to forget that, like, you can't ever forget that. You know, you guys know that. You wake up every day and you're like, okay,
That's what it allows you to do. It allows you to forget every
Yeah.
once in a while. You slow. I see it happen all the time.
Yeah.
I think my greatest when I see guys with like 10 plus years pick up and go out, they're never the same.
well, it's so hard to because again, that attachment to the time messes with their head
does.
about I can't get back to where I was, and
Yep.
Well, they want to.
Yeah.
They just want to pick up where they left off.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, and you can never do that.
My cousin, I'll give you a quick story. Like my cousin who had, he relapsed on the pills, like your addiction, like at 25 years sober,
Oh no.
and then started drinking again. And when me and a buddy of mine did an intervention, we got him into a treatment center, and he's doing great now. You know, he lives down south. But I remember at one point when he was trying to get back into his program, just beating himself up about, I had 25 years and I blew it. I can't get over this. And I'd be like, Jimmy, had it not been for you those first 2 years, you were one of the guys that saved my life. You didn't all of a sudden lose that or forget that.
Right.
Like
No.
you're trying to grasp, stop feeding into that negative thinking. Like that, you saved my life, dude. And
a
he
lot
was
of people
like,
look at the calendar.
yeah.
Well, I don't have the time. I start at zero again.
Yeah.
Forget that.
Yeah, right.
Look
It's
at
like,
where you were
get
before.
back on track. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's like how many of those 25 years were bullshit anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
Who knows?
Psychologically, it's tough though. If you have 25 years, you got to
Oh,
start
yeah.
at zero
It
again.
is, yeah.
oh, brother,
That's
I
really,
relapsed with
you
2
know,
years,
just
and I was
another
like, oh, I had
consequence,
2 years.
yeah.
People are
Yeah.
like, you know, like, who
It's just
cares?
another thing to feel awful about
Yeah.
and then drink over, right?
It's
Yeah,
just like, who cares? What did
It's
you
like-
do in those 2 years?
yeah, and if
know
you
what I
really
mean?
believe it's a day at a time,
then it
we
doesn't
should be
matter.
It
focusing
doesn't
on that.
matter.
you know?
25
Doesn't
years,
matter.
25
You know,
weeks.
I got to Friday nights. I go to dinner and a meeting with a bunch of guys. We invite like 15 guys. Usually 4 or 5 of us will go. Like the core group of us that started that all have over 30 years of sobriety, and but we're all guys who really work at it a day at a time. Like to what we were talking about earlier. It's like it's a day at a time. each of us,
That's it.
Yeah.
If you break it off in little parts like that,
Yeah.
it really becomes much simpler. It's not easy per se, but it's simple.
Yeah.
You're not looking 25 years out. You're not looking 5
too
year
far
I'll
ahead.
get married, I'll this or that or whatever. You're just really looking at the day in front of you.
It's like the best thing that 12-step teaches is like, because it's like keeps you in the now. You're not carrying all the garbage from the past, and you're not looking 10 years ahead. It's like just live in today. Get through today.
Absolutely. Well, this was an outstanding episode, Sammy.
I knew it would be.
I knew it would be
great.
too.
I knew
And,
it would
Are
be
you
awesome
guys
to
just
have on.
saying that because you love me?
Yeah.
Sorry it took 39 episodes,
to
man.
get to you, brother. Yeah. I thought
But I'm
about
glad I
having him
ran
on.
into you at the event last week.
Oh my God! It was so great to see you, buddy.
I mean,
it's been way too long.
It's been way too long. That's right. We really, really enjoyed you having on. What a great story. And there's so much more to tell. Maybe you can come back later and we'll get into some different topics.
Okay.
But we really, really enjoyed having you on. Sam, any last thoughts?
I'm just always good to see you. I'm really happy you were able. I know you're busy. You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So for you to give us this time means a lot. So thank you.
Appreciate
To hang
it.
out with you guys and talk shop, talk recovery. This is
it was
hey,
fun.
look, I kid you not, I feel like I loved today. This was really cool, just us
Yeah.
sitting down and not
It's
just
fun,
kind of
right?
being
Yeah.
reunited, but just
Sure,
kind of talking
sure.
recovery. That's how we spread the word, right?
When
fun.
we are, this podcast spreads the word all over. And again, like I can't thank you enough for being on. And I'm Vinny. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Tom. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Yeah.
And you are listening. You have just listened to Tenacious Recovery, the podcast. You got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. And with that, God willing, we'll see you next time.